Yeah, guys, this new Weeknd film, Hurry Up Tomorrow.
It's not good.
Everything about this film, one way or another, lets down its concept. I really like what this film is going for. The deconstruction of fame and the psychological effect that can have on a person, I think is a really interesting premise, and it's particularly an interesting premise for a musician to come up with. Musicians, in my opinion, along with actors, I would probably say, are some of the most egotistical people in our society, at least if you're going by demographics rather than individuals. But the premise here would suggest a sense of introspection and the ability to be self-aware, and yet everything about this film, the directing, the acting, the writing, it all comes off as a star vehicle for the Weeknd's image and for him to essentially promote himself in another avenue outside of music and ultimately outside of TV, because that avenue has already failed. Now, the idea or the premise, the concept that the film comes up with, that it is based on this idea of a delusional musician who can't decide what is real, what isn't. You know, does he want to be in this sort of life or does he want to be out of it? The concept and the premise that the film is based on, this idea of a delusional musician who can't decide whether he wants to live with fame or whether he wants to be essentially anonymous, is completely distracted by the multimedia aspect that the film is tied into the Weeknd's newest album that released in January, Hurry Up Tomorrow, where just when you think that the film might get going, it goes, here's a song from his new album, here's one of his musician friends. And at every aspect of this film, the premise is not fully realized because of the need for other actors, the director, the writing, and the Weeknd himself to get in the way of itself. And if we were really interested in exploring this premise, the Weeknd wouldn't be in this film whatsoever. He would be the arbiter of the story, and he would be given a writing credit, and then that will be the extent of his, vision. Maybe a producer credit, an executive producer credit, and we would be seeing him as this, not an auteur, but someone who possibly had interesting ideas about introspection and self-awareness and the deconstruction of his own ego through this medium and through different ventures that allowed him to explore the fame and notoriety that he had gained through music. But as I say, the best part of this film is the premise. I hate to spoil this review by letting you know that every other aspect of this film is going to be negative. I am from here on out going to basically shit on this film continuously, but there is very little going for the film in every other respect. Now, the directing, I don't really know how to criticize Trey Edward Shults, and I'm not saying I won't do it because he is someone that has produced one of my favourite films over the last 10 years. I think Waves, it personally, is a masterpiece. But with that being said, I don't know how to criticize him in regards to this film, because I don't know whose vision this film actually is. Now, it is clear that The Weeknd was heavily involved in the production. It's clear that a lot of the ideas that are being explored in this film come from The Weeknd's mind himself. But with that being said, Trey Edward Shults is also credited as the editor of the film. I believe he's a producer on the film, he's the director, he's the writer. So where does the contributions of The Weeknd end, and where does Trey Edward Shults start? I have serious misgivings about how much freedom Trey Edward Shults was given, and how much he was just brought on the film and told, yeah, just stand behind the camera, make it look fancy on occasion, but writ large, just hit play on the camera. That's all we want you here for. And I think that there are times when I can see him come through the film. The sort of 360 camera angle or camera rotation in the car is something that is in Waves. You can see that. And some of the themes in this film, I think, are something that he would be interested in. The deconstruction of relationships between people, the introspection necessary of a person to break down their own poor decisions, and to see how that has affected another person or another group of people. These are things that are present in It Comes at Night and Waves. With that being said, I also believe that the concept originally comes from The Weeknd, and the need to have The Weeknd in the film bogs down his ability to really explore these ideas. And once again, if The Weeknd isn't in the film, there is no need for The Weeknd's music to be in the film, and therefore there would be no need for this at moments to feel like a concert film. And instead, what we would be watching is simply an exploration of a musician in the background and in the behind the scenes moments where we go, all right, what's this musician all about? Instead, in several moments, Trey Edward Shults is essentially told to direct multiple parts of a concert so that we can see the Weeknd's new music on show, and that, distracts from these themes. And once again, I have to ask, whose vision is this? I don't imagine that Trey Edward Shults would have wanted to direct those moments, because he surely knows that the themes that he wants to explore, or is at least meant to be exploring, disappear in those moments and feel like rhythm breakers and feel like it upsets the tone. That is clear, and I would expect that as an experienced director, he completely understands that and is aware of the necessity to get back to the film as much as possible and as quick as possible. And instead, the need to break it up with these concert moments and the need to break it up where, The Weeknd is the only one on screen, essentially, these form a incohesive message and an incohesive film that I struggle to really understand what is the driving motive behind this film. And that lack of a driving motive is because I don't know who the driving force is of this film. Is the driving force the psychology of a musician's mind? Is it about the effect that fame can have on a musician's mind? Is it about this musician's relationship with women? Is it about the musician's relationship with the people around him in general? Is it about his music? Just, is that it? And I don't know. And none of these themes are fully explored, and that is where Trey Edward Shults fails. I will also say that on numerous occasions, he utilizes the same sort of shot. I believe that in total, the 360 camera spin in the car is used a total of 3 times in this film, to the point where I was like, Jesus Christ, I feel like I'm getting nauseous because it's used all in the first 20 minutes and then never again. If you're going to use that same shot again and again and again in a film, that needs to be spread out over a 2-hour film. You cannot use that so quickly in a film, because I'm bored. I've seen this once, and then I see it again, and I go, okay, that's a bit weird. And then it comes a third time, and I go, am I meant to be impressed by this? I don't know why you're showing me this again. And then there is the fact that I don't believe that Shults, and let's even say The Weeknd as a producer and as a writer, I don't believe he gets one good performance out of anyone on screen. I don't believe The Weeknd is very good. I don't believe Barry Keoghan is very good. And I certainly don't believe Jenna Ortega is very good at all. Is he giving any direction to these actors? I believe in Waves and in It Comes at Night. I have my criticism of It Comes at Night especially, but the acting in both of those films is on point. It is great. And here, it is just phoned in, and the only thing that I can really feel like is, Waves was made in 2019, I believe. It's been 6 years since his last film. Is he basically on this film to collect a paycheck? I wouldn't blame him going 6 years without a film. I don't really know what that does for a director's pockets. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what has happened here. And you can see that in some sense with the fact that I believe if you're going to say whose vision is this, I believe it has to be The Weeknd's more than is Shults. And ultimately, this looks like a phoned-in effort from Shults, and it looks like he is attempting to cash in a check more than anything, and has essentially gone, I will take less creative control if I am just given a bigger paycheck. And I don't lament him for that. I just lament that I haven't gotten another film out of a guy whose previous effort I love, and instead I got a fucking trash heap, essentially. But let's come on to the acting. Now, as I've already said, terrible across the board. The Weeknd cannot act. He should not be allowed to act. This isn't a guy who has it. He isn't someone that, can make that transition. He clearly looks at people like Whitney Houston, Jennifer Lopez, and goes, I want to do that. I want to make the transition. This isn't one that is on for him. And I actively believe that these films and TV shows are hindering his image, not helping it. Again, I believe he has interesting ideas about introspection and self-awareness, but that is, mimicked or mirrored by the fact that this film particularly seems like self-flagellation and seems like he's essentially sucking himself off. He isn't helping his image. He isn't, coming off as introspective. He is instead using this as a star vehicle to push his album and to push a multimedia experiment. It's not working. If anything, I want to listen to his music less because of this film, not more. And then we come on to the two actual actors. Jenna Ortega, I'm seriously starting to doubt whether or not her career is ever going to pick up. I liked Beetlejuice last year, but that felt like one where I was like, okay, this kind of character needs to now be left behind. She needs to pursue something seriouser. She needs to pursue, even if it's a franchise, I don't know. You cannot keep going down this emo goth girl route where you are continuously put in the same situation and playing the same character again and again. You then play that same character again in Death of a Unicorn, which is a terrible film. The script is terrible, the acting is terrible. Will Poulter is the only saving force of that movie, and it's a waste concept, and I cannot recommend that film less. I recommend this film less because, like I said, at least Will Poulter is good in that film. She then, in my opinion, basically plays that character again in this film, where she plays an emo girl who is meant to be obsessed with The Weeknd, but I don't ever actually believe she is obsessed. There is very little that sort of, goes, she's obsessed with his music, other than she has a wallpaper and is, heard listening to The Weeknd's music once in a car. There isn't anything other than that. And I really am now looking at Jenna Ortega and going, you're not going to do this. Your career is going to be over by the time you are 30 unless you really start picking up now. Part of that is the fact that she started so early in her career. I think she hit when she was like 18, 19. Now, that's very hard. The way she talks about film and the fact that she is incredibly knowledgeable about this means that we have to judge her on a serious scale. She wants to be seen as a bit of an auteur, producer and actor. Where is that then? Why isn't that being reflected in the film she chooses? Why is she going for roles like Miller's Girl? Why is the Wednesday TV show still going, I believe, but in development hell? Why is she choosing Death of a Unicorn? Why is she choosing, so-called altruistic and independent features, but why is she choosing the terrible ones? What's going wrong here? Is it a lack of opportunities? Is she just choosing bad projects herself? Is it the people around her? I don't know. But I am seriously worried about her career, given that I know she's a good actress. Then we come on to Barry Keoghan. This is the first performance I've seen from him where I've really gone, Jesus Christ, mate, this is bad. Like, this is terrible. And he, in my opinion, sort of feels like a Shia LaBeouf in Megalopolis character, where he almost feels like he's playing into the bad aspects of his acting. And he almost feels like he knows that this is a bad film, so he's just deliberately overacting to at least give himself something to do, and something that he can probably watch back and enjoy. Nevertheless, he is bad in this film, and I didn't enjoy him, and I found him particularly annoying, if anything, and in some respect, his character almost felt like he was playing himself, or at least what we have heard about him behind the scenes, which is that he's really big into the Hollywood party scene, and that is essentially what his character is a party boy. Something that I can give him that I can't give the other two actors, actors in quotes for The Weeknd, is he at least convinces me that he is his character. I just don't like his character, and I don't like the way that he convinces me it. I don't like the way that he convinces me that he is his character, because the acting isn't good anyways. Overall, very bad, and part of that, I believe, is on the director, part of that is on the actors, and then finally, part of that is on the writing. So, as I've already said, the writing is self-serving. It's an advertisement pushing the Weeknd's multimedia experiment and his album. To add to that, I would say that the writing, in some sense, is basically non-existent. I don't know what the plot of this movie is. What is the driving force? Again, what is the point A and the point B of this movie? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm not being hyperbolic about this. I don't know what the driving force of the film is. Is it the idea that the Weeknd starts as a musician, at least struggling in some sense, and that at the end of the film he's burned down his worries and the elements that are essentially deconstructing his life and making it worse? I don't know. I don't feel like that's what it is. None of the characters on screen are developed. General Ortega is basically written off as being part of his mind. The Weeknd doesn't feel like he's changed. By the end of the film, I still feel like he's a mess of a guy. He's just burned down a hotel room, and with it, presumably, a hotel, to get rid of the body that he, killed. He kills Barry Keoghan in this movie. Spoilers. He isn't developed. Barry Keoghan, as I said, is dead. He doesn't change whatsoever. He's just a leech for the entire movie, who towards the end of the film, I don't really know who you're meant to side with when Barry Keoghan is on top of General Ortega, but presumably Barry Keoghan is on top of the Weeknd, I guess, but the scene seems to imply that maybe Barry Keoghan is either going to kill her or is going to rape her, but I'm not sure. But then the General Ortega doesn't exist, so is he on top of the Weeknd? Is he trying to rape the Weeknd? I don't know. I'm not really sure what's happening here. Surely he wouldn't kill the Weeknd because the Weeknd is his cash cow. It doesn't make any sense. So there's no plot, there's no character development. Are the individual scenes at least writ well? I don't believe so, because I don't know what is happening from scene to scene. It just feels like a collection of scenes. It doesn't feel like there is a narrative that is continuously running through. It doesn't feel like there's anything important actually happening in any of the scenes that we are bearing witness to. There is one scene in this movie that I will give credit to, and that is the fact that there is a very clear and overt reference and joke made at the Weeknd's expense in reference to The Idol, basically saying, fuck that show, it got bad reviews, who cares anyways? I think that's a bold move. Unfortunately for the Weeknd, he's going to now have to do that again. If you have to do that a second time and then the third movie is bad, or the third movie, TV show, whatever, is bad, that's a bad look. And you're starting to get to a level now where people just go, yeah, we're not even going to finance this movie. And I don't believe this movie is going to turn a profit. I haven't checked, but I would be very worried if I was the Weeknd that, for a second time, your movie is getting bad critical reviews and isn't performing well with audiences. But that's the end of this review. Thank you for making it this far. Don't go and see this movie. Go and see, I don't know, Black Bag. Wait for some of the stuff coming out in June. There's good stuff out there right now. I just don't believe that this is it. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, Letterboxd, TikTok, Twitter, all in the description down below. Thank you for watching.